The base is dropped in a couple different places. Mike Conti and myself, Jason Longshore, back in Atlanta, Georgia. We think, kind of, as of about a couple hours ago. John Nelson still in Costa Rica. You will be returning to Atlanta tonight? All right. Yeah. Atlanta United last night, I'm sure all of you know by now, 3-1 losers on the road at Herediano. It's a really weird match. I was actually hoping to watch some of it back on the plane, but Yahoo does not make the matches available on demand, which kind of stinks. Feels like a lost opportunity. That's something I really do like about ESPN Plus and their programming, because usually it's available for 7 days or 30 days, depending on the rights deal. I'd love to see that going forward, because just so you guys know, on Mike and I's end, calling the match last night, no video screens in the stadium, no scoreboard in the stadium. They're overrated. And no replay monitors, so what we saw live was all we saw. I've seen the very short highlight reel that I think CONCACAF put out. It was about 90 seconds, maybe 2 minutes, and it's just the goals. It was just a weird match, and it's honestly to be expected, because you're in this situation where Atlanta United comes in with no competitive matches under their belt. Herediano comes in. This is their 10th competitive match of the calendar year. And even with the poor form they've been in, that difference really showed. And Mike, I mean, the storyline coming in from a lot of different folks, players, pundits, everybody, was that the intensity needed to be matched by Atlanta. And I don't think it was on a regular basis. Oh, yeah.
I keep coming back to this, and I'm with you, Jason. I haven't even seen the highlights. I haven't even seen the 90 seconds. I mean, I'm just going solely off memory from our vantage point in that stadium. To me, it did not feel like a 3-1 loss. It felt like a loss, but it felt like Atlanta United played a little bit better than the scoreline indicated. And I know you agree with me, and I'll be
Yes.
interested to hear if John feels the same way too. But I got really nervous when Herediano generated a good scoring chance in the first minute. I got really, really nervous when the first couple minutes were very frenetic, very fast. Atlanta United not very, very open. And that Herediano had no qualms whatsoever about taking the game right to Atlanta United. That scared me. Because you're right, Jason. I mean, this is an Herediano team that has now played, 10 matches together over the last couple of weeks, competitive matches. Atlanta United has played none. So when I saw Herediano go out and try to set an early tone, that made me very nervous, because we knew that the first 15 minutes would be very, very difficult for Atlanta United, because it's their first competitive match of the season, and there's going to be some sloppiness and some errors, and we saw all of that, especially on the opening goal. But I like the fact that every time Atlanta United conceded, they came back and they had probably a good 20-minute pocket. After they conceded on the first goal, which was a weird play, a chip, they came right back and they were on the front foot for about 20 minutes. And I think a lot of people will forget, or maybe not even know this because they didn't stay tuned to the entire match. After they gave up the third goal, Atlanta United had 3 really very good scoring opportunities after that in the second half, where they might have been able to steal a result or even win the match. Nagby with a shot that was beautifully saved by Cambronero. Tito hitting the post right at the very end. And Joseph, they find him on a header that more often than not he's going to be able to put in the back of the net. So, like I said, a lot of thoughts. That's a long, rambling answer. I'm sorry. But I got very, very nervous when I saw Herediano go out and immediately generate a chance in the first minute because I thought Atlanta United already was in a spot where they were going to have to hold on through the first 15 minutes, and Herediano was going to take the match to them.
John, what's your overall reaction to last night?
Well, I mean, I will second Mike's motion to the floor that it didn't feel like it was a 3-1 loss. And there were those moments early on where you're sitting there saying, okay, you've got to try to manage your way through that. And, we always use that 15 to 20 minutes as your first marker. But when Herediano came out, pedal down, you're sitting there saying, okay, in this condition, first match out competitively, they're with their experience in league play and they're coming into this with a little more offensive and defensive flow. They decided that they were going to come out of the blocks and sit there and just push and create opportunities. And for me, once again, it goes back to the opportunities Atlanta United had. And it was once again stuff from the wings trying to get it into a clogged middle. And the opportunities were either from distance most of the time or from crosses that were worked in. So for me, it didn't feel 3-1. Atlanta United had their chances, but I'm taking this from the Atlanta United perspective of okay, it's your first competitive match under a new coach, new philosophy, new setup, and then I know we're going to be getting into players and things like that. So I'm looking at it, and Mike, and you made the point when the match was over that the road goal could come up large. When that goal was scored, you made the point to sit there and say, okay, this could come up big because right now, and you laid out the permutations, and I salute you for math, 2-0, win by 3, and that gets you through, and then you get into math and all that kind of stuff. But no, it did not feel like a 3-1 loss to me. There were opportunities there, but once again, you're trying to find your legs in a new defensive shape and just getting acquainted with everything competitively.
Yeah, we're going to have lots of reactions. So for those of you out there listening or jumping in midstream, use the Twitter @SoccerDownHere, use the Overreaction Friday hashtag, and let us know what your reactions are, and we'll discuss. Look, this is the thing about Atlanta United at this stage. It's different. It's not exactly the same as Tata Martino. It's not, speaking a completely different language, but it's different. There's different pieces. There's different faces. There's different personalities, and it did not click like a team that you would expect to see in April or May or October. It's a work in progress. So that's one thing. I've seen a lot of people, use the get punched in the mouth, punched in the face, come back down to earth, that type of stuff. A wake-up call. I hesitate to use that terminology because it's kind of unfair when you look at the situation. And this is a much broader picture, and it's not sour grapes because it's an issue that MLS has grappled with for a long time. The calendar puts them at an incredible disadvantage. The only team from MLS that had an advantage over their opponent in terms of being in a rhythm was the New York Red Bulls, because Atletico Pantoja's season in the Dominican Republic hasn't started yet. It doesn't start till April. So they were at the biggest disadvantage in CONCACAF Champions League. You go in to play a team that's 10 games in and you're playing your first competitive game, you're not going to be at the same speed. And I thought that showed. The good moments made me feel pretty good about where this team can go and what they can be. The bad moments, I know a lot of people are isolating individual players, and we'll talk about individual performances too. But I think overall, it's very hard to make big judgments at the moment about where this team is just because of that situation. All that being said, to me, Atlanta United did not perform as well as they could have, and they didn't take advantage of the opportunities they had in the match. I think that's the number one thing is they did create chances, and they did not put enough chances on frame, and they didn't bury the chances that they usually do. That's a fact. Herediano, on the other hand, played the best match they've played since the Grand Finale back in December. This was the best they've played in this calendar year, by far. You look back at their match against Perez Zeledon from Sunday, they had 4 shots, period. They had 5 shots on goal in the first half. They were creating more. Some of that down to taking advantage of missteps and mistakes by Atlanta United, but they were creating more chances and doing more in possession than we've seen them do all season long. So there is a combination of both here. And I think the number one thing as we wrap up the first overall big picture segment, you're 3-1 down. The other favorites in the competition, one drew on the road, 0-0, Monterrey at Alianza, which Alianza is a much weaker opponent than Herediano. And Tigres lost at Saprissa, and Saprissa has been a better opponent than Herediano so far this season. So your favorites are all facing second legs at home where they're going to have to put the pedal down a little bit and take care of business. Now, Atlanta's going to have to find a gear that I think maybe they found for 5-6 minutes at a time last night, not any sustained period of time. They're going to have to find that on Thursday, and they're going to have to find it early because they really need to get a goal. I mean, in the first half, at a minimum, you don't want to get super desperate at the end because then you invite a goal on the counter. You want to get a goal as early as possible. You want to open this game up in a good way, and you want to put pressure on Herediano, a team that has struggled this calendar year. Aaron Medford said it last night. You know, they had a good result. They played well. They're very happy with their performance. They're not going in with a ton of confidence into the second leg like it's done. They haven't done anything yet. They've been here before. They know how these things go. But you want to make them question themselves. And that's kind of what Atlanta United has to do and get on the front foot early in the second game. But a 2-0 win, which is absolutely something that this team is capable of, even right now where they're not firing on all cylinders, a 2-0 win and you're through because you got that away goal. That goal from Gressel was huge. If you'd snuck one more, you'd be in a much better place. But 2-0 win at home is absolutely doable. This series is still completely up for grabs. Herediano plays a league match this weekend, so they're going to come in on short rest. Atlanta gets a week to figure it out, and they're going to need every minute of that week to try to get a match rhythm, to figure out what went wrong, and figure out what maybe they need to change, whether it's in the long term or the short term. I think it's an opportunity to address those things after a competitive match, and you can see kind of how things went. Tweet at us with your thoughts, whether they're overall big picture, whether they are nitpicky, whether they're individual players, whether it's individual tactics last night, just questions about the night in general. Tweet at us at Soccer Down Here. We're going to take a quick break. All catch our breath because we're all operating on no sleep. It's Team No Sleep here today. And we'll be right back after this.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. 888-888-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Every hiring manager knows that a company is only as good as the people it's made from. So where do you find the best people? That may surprise you.
Meet the grads of life. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
This is talent worth knowing about.
Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
Welcome back. We're still awake for now. If you hear anybody's head collapsing and hitting the desk in front of them, it's probably me, but we'll try to get through it. Tweet your overreactions, underreactions, on par reactions to us at Soccer Down Here. There have been a lot, which is awesome. Always good. Even when we disagree, that's what we're here for. It's all good. But, yeah, there's a lot from last night, which means there were a lot of people watching last night, a lot of people listening to us on 92.9 The Game, and thank you for doing that. A lot of people said they were muting and syncing, and very cool. Mike, maybe one of the cool things that we heard last night before we start getting into real overreactions, the announcer from Xolos chimed in, and he was checking out the broadcast, and that was very cool.
It was awesome. It means a lot to me. It humbles me a great deal. I know it means a lot to you too. I really appreciate everyone checking in, really from around the world, and we'll get into this later. But again, it's not possible if Atlanta United doesn't make the financial commitment to send us down there. And Jason and I both had a chance to thank Darren personally last night. But and again, we'll get into this later. I thought it was remarkable that Arthur Blank was there. I thought it was remarkable that Skate Nofziger was there to make sure that all the supporters were looked after and taken care of. And, man, I mean, this club they are not afraid to spare any expense to do it the right way. And part of that was to send us down to Costa Rica. And I mean, the way that the Herediano people were reacting when we walked into the building, the club staff, and even the CONCACAF people, I think they were kind of shocked to see, wait a minute, team radio, really? I mean, an American MLS team is sending radio down to Costa Rica. So based on that, I think that kind of validates what we saw a lot on Twitter yesterday, that hopefully, Jason, we're not going to be the last American-based radio crew to do this, that maybe we're the first, because this is really the way it should be done.
Yeah, there's been some who have done it in the past. I don't know how regularly, and I don't know if they did it traveling, but it's happened. It's not happening enough, and it needs to happen more. And it's a very important part of, I think, an overall club storytelling, because there is that personal connection that's needed, and we're very lucky to have that with a lot of people who listen to the games and listen to us on a regular basis. So we're lucky, and we're very appreciative of everybody from Herediano, from CONCACAF, from Atlanta United to make this happen and get us down there and get us on the air and keep us on the air. It all worked out. We were a little concerned, but it all worked out. All right, let's start getting into the overreactions here, because there's a bunch. We have a pile. Tofka TLC, this is from last night. Fair to say, and John, I'm going to throw this one at you first. Fair to say that DeBoer tried to change way too much, way too fast. We look tactically lost out there. And this is the breakdown. Remedi asked to do Nagbe-type work. Parkey asked to do Robinson work and vice versa. No number 10. PT invisible. Joseph with no service. LGP with another nightmare opener. Lorenowitz being asked to do Remedi's 2018 job. Barco with a lot of running and no end pass. Go ahead.
Okay, so you give me 7 topics. Okay.
Pick wherever so let me see if start in that. Do you think that Frank DeBoer tried to change too much tactically and made the team look lost?
No. I think that, once again, the discussions that the three of us have had over the last couple of weeks is that it's not the same, but it's not entirely different, because Frank DeBoer has even said in press conferences that you're not going to completely and totally just tear something up if it's been successful. So I would maintain first and foremost, that yes, it's a little different. Yes, it takes a little adjusting and getting used to. But once again, you're talking about something that is in its first match. So I would be cautious in saying that things were completely overhauled. They weren't. It was a tweak here and a little bit of a system adjustment. It was not something that was completely overhauled to where, you're turning an Oldsmobile 442 into a Cutlass Supreme. It wasn't that way for me.
Yeah. The 3 goals that were conceded. The first one was shocking from LGP. Not a great ball from Bello. I mean, Bello gave Leandro a difficult decision to make, but that's one that I think when you are in rhythm, because this has nothing to do with tactics. That goal had zero to do with tactics. It is a difficult ball to handle. You're under pressure. You decide to play it back to the goalkeeper, and you're not going to get it there. So Herediano reads it, Ortiz jumps it, goal. That's one that I think when you're in a rhythm and you're used to making these decisions at that faster pace, at that game speed, you put that ball into the stands, and it's probably over the stands and down the road. That's what you need to do when you're under that pressure. And Leandro did not. He made the wrong decision in that situation. When you're not in a match rhythm, that happens. That's not a tactical issue. Second goal, I thought, was Herediano's best moment of the night, where they played out of trouble, where there was a little bit of a press as Atlanta was trying to quicken the pace. They played from left to right. This is where you can have a discussion about a couple different things that Tafka said, Mike, where he says that, talking tactics in general, but he talks about Parkhurst asked to do Robinson work, LGP with a bad night, that side of it. Because I thought the way that one played out, when they swung it to the right, they played a ball into the channel that LGP kind of lunged at. Didn't get anything on it, I don't think. And then Parkhurst kept Azofeifa onside.
Yeah.
And he was late to step, and they were dead to rights at that point. What do you think about the tactics there? And is that an issue with DeBoer, or is it an issue with the players, or is it an issue with the tactics?
Well, the tactics there obviously don't work on that particular goal. But no, it was good build-up, as you said. It was Herediano's best goal of the night. It was unfortunate and a little unlucky. And a goal, by the way, that I have not seen a replay of, and there wasn't much protest on the pitch. But
I did. He was on. And that's
okay.
I mean,
it was close. It was tight.
I watched it back a couple times. It was Parkhurst who was late to step because LGP was up high. He was the one who lunged first. Robinson was trying to shade back and cover, and Parkhurst was the one that was slower to step up. I just don't like the offside trap there, period. And it's not something Atlanta usually does.
No, really at all last year? I don't remember it.
No.
I mean, I'm sure it probably happened once or twice.
You're going to catch people off, but I don't think it's a tactic. And I don't know if it's a tactic now, to be honest. I think it might have just been, again, slow to make the decision.
Well, it's the only time we saw it last night. So, is it a tactic or is it a decision? If it's a tactic, you're probably going to see it more than once. 2 different points. Look, LGP had a really lousy first half. I think even he would admit that.
Yes.
This is important. LGP played a really very good second half. And this was not Houston, where LGP had a shocker for 90 minutes and the malaise carried over all the way through that Minnesota game where he body checked the guy and got red carded. And we didn't really see LGP round into what he needed to be probably until the LA Galaxy match or maybe even later. I thought it was vital for LGP to go out there and have a clean second half, and he absolutely did. Looked very, very good. Even generated a chance. I think that's enormously important. It also demonstrates that when one of your most reliable players is having a bad night, anything can happen to your team. And, we can have debates about if there is a talent gap between Atlanta United and Herediano, but LGP was probably your most reliable defender last year. And when your most reliable defender's having a bad night, you're going to get goals like you got there in the first half. The chip by Ortiz and then the goal that we're speaking of now. As far as the whole Parkhurst doing Robinson's work, Robinson doing Parkhurst's work, I don't think we can really use last night as a full evaluator of how that is going to look this year. Because when we saw it in preseason against Xolos, it looked pretty darn good. That was against a reserve squad, but still, it looked good. I actually thought that Miles Robinson was one of the better Atlanta United players all night and could have been man of the match if Atlanta United had gotten a result. Miles Robinson did absolutely nothing wrong, in my opinion, last night. Nothing glaringly wrong. So let's wait and see on that. I mean, Parkhurst made a bad step. It was a good goal by Herediano. It happens. There are a lot of other things going on in the first half last night, too. Like Barco and Pitti getting clobbered all over the place and the referee not calling anything. The fact that that pitch was lightning fast, it hadn't been watered, balls taking an awkward bounce left and right, and Atlanta United was having trouble connecting, I think in part because of the pitch. I mean, it's a lot of different things. A lot of different things were going wrong in that first half last night. To single out Parkhurst and Miles Robinson, I think is a little bit unfair.
I'm definitely not singling out Miles Robinson. I think Robinson was the best of the three in the center as the center backs last night for the 90 minutes. LGP was maybe the best in the final 30. Robinson was the best overall. I thought he played his role very well. If you're going to play in this way, a 3-4-3, where you want everybody involved in possession, you cannot play Michael Parkhurst in the middle. You cannot have him there as the cleanup man because he is not going to have the wheels to do it. That's why Miles Robinson is there. If you change the tactics like you did last year and you're going to sit deeper and you're going to absorb pressure, absolutely. But you cannot compare the way the center backs functioned last year to this year. Can't do it. So it's not about whose work it is. That's gone now. In this system, when you want your center backs, especially the two flanking the central player, to be involved and step forward as needed, as necessary, you've got to have somebody with a lot of range to cover them. Miles Robinson's absolutely done that.
How many times last night did we see Miles backtrack and just absolutely close down an offensive chance?
He really did well. I mean, I'm not able to think of a time that I was frustrated or disappointed or anything in really anything he did. Ball at his feet, defending, covering, positioning. And even the second goal, that if you want to throw blame on LGP on the initial stab, if you want to throw blame on Parkhurst for a late step, there's multiple things that went wrong there. And if you're going to talk tactical issues, that would be the goal to talk them about. And I need to see the whole build-up. This is one that I really wanted to go back and look to see, all right, did the front decide to press when maybe they shouldn't have? Did they go do it by themselves, then get stretched out, then there's no support? What happened? And I have not seen the full build-up back again. Thanks, Yahoo. Would love to see it. Yeah. But the third goal was a set piece. And it was a set piece where there's really nothing tactical in creating the set piece. It was a long diagonal, and you'd had a little bit of chippiness back and forth, and George Bello maybe was a step late to recover and committed a foul, gave up a free kick, and Asa Feifa punished you. That's what he does. He was the man of the match. Nothing really tactical there. Julian Gressel was late on the mark on the back post. That's about it. So a goal on an individual mistake, a goal off a set piece, which we were worried about coming in, and a goal that there was build-up involved in. And that's the one that maybe we can dig a little deeper into. Beyond that, there were some chances, and we need to look through every one and see, okay, where did things fall down? But the midfield is maybe more of a question, and there's been a lot of reactions to the midfield because that's maybe the biggest difference. You have Jeff Larenowitz and Eric Remedi as two central midfielders. Now, I think there's an idea that Pity Martinez and Ezequiel Barco are completely separate from them. And last night, too often they looked like they were. There was a big gap there too often. That needs to change. And when this team played the way it did against Shoulders, and even the way the second team played against Cal State Fullerton, they were not as disconnected. And that's maybe the biggest complaint about last night is even in possession, it felt like Remedi, the Renowitz were playing different situations than Pitti and Barco because of the gaps that were created. That's something that can't happen. If you're going to control possession and you're going to have the possession that Atlanta did last night, I believe it was 53% at the final. No, it's actually 50-50. But at first half, it was a good bit.
59.
59. And you only had, I believe, 4 shots in the first half and maybe the one on target.
The shots, Jason, were 7-6 Atlanta in the first half, but 5-2 on target Herediano. So only 2 on target for Atlanta.
That's it. So you have that possession, you're not creating those chances. That's a problem. That's the issue is the difference. And if you want to talk tactics, and we'll move on to more individual performances as we go too, but if you want to talk tactics, that's the number one difference between 2019 Atlanta United and 2018 Atlanta United, especially the way 2018 ended. 2018 ended with a team that was going to concede as little as possible. They were going to commit numbers behind the ball as needed, but had an explosive counter, and when they got forward, they were dangerous. Now, you're flipping that on its head. You don't want to be reactive. You want to be proactive, and you want to have the ball, and you want to play keep away, but you want to use that possession to create chances. That takes a little bit of time. And how many balls did we see, Mike, that passes were too heavy or too soft, not connecting with the intended target, offline? It just felt like a team that was playing its first competitive match of the season in that regard.
By the way, that wasn't just in the midfield. I mean, do you remember in the second half, I think Parkhurst was trying to switch it over to Bello, go from right to left. It might have been Robinson. I don't remember. And play that over the touchline. There were more than a few occasions where they were trying to get the ball up to Gressel, and the touch was too heavy. It's one of those things. We're going to keep coming back to this. It's your first match. A competitive match. And there are only so many ways you can replicate what you saw last night in the preseason. I also think you have to give Herediano a little bit of credit in disconnecting those passing lanes in the midfield. And I feel like we had more than a few occasions where as soon as the ball got to Pitti, he's surrounded by 3 men. And usually drawing contact and not usually getting fouled, which, again, is an issue that I think we could get into with the referee. Same with Barco. So some of it's Herediano. One thing I would note, though, and the match certainly had a different feel after it was 3-1, but when Nagby came in, I think some of that issue was solved. And Agreed. Maybe I'm reading too much into that because it was 3-1 and there was a little less urgency from Herediano. I thought Nagby came in and was super impactful. And that's going to be a discussion now this week, is what do you do with this? I mean, Nagby had talked about, I think on Tuesday, needing to regain the trust of his teammates and the technical staff. Looks like that's happened because he played last night. Do you make a change to your 11 now for this return leg up in Kennesaw? And is Nagby a part of that? I would certainly understand if it were to be that way, because he brought a little bit more control. And as you said on the broadcast last night, Jason, just a new dimension in the midfield that Atlanta United really needed at that time.
Yeah, I thought Villalba did as well. I think both of them, seeing the way the game played out, it makes it a little bit easier for them because they can see what's not going well and what they can do to change it. And I thought both came in and found space between the lines and helped connect. Villalba a little more forward, Nagby a little deeper, and they found the opportunities to connect passes. That was big. That was needed, and that wasn't happening enough. It was happening maybe the middle portion of the first half. I thought Atlanta looked its most dangerous consistently in that middle portion where Pity Martinez was getting the ball in space and beating defenders on the dribble. Barco was beating defenders on the dribble going to goal. I thought as the half went on, Pity was not 90 minutes match fit. I thought that was pretty clear. He struggled. He struggled, I think, a little bit with the physicality because he was taking some shots. Got a little frustrated. I think he got a little frustrated with himself. He wasn't completely sharp. Again, it's his first match. It happens. I hate to keep harping on that, but it is a fact. Barco, I think, tried to do a little too much on the dribble as the night went on. He also was getting hit, and I think at that point he's trying to draw fouls and wasn't getting them. And at that point, the better decision, instead of continuing to run into that wall and hope it busts open, is start playing a little quicker. If the ref's not going to give you those calls, start playing a little quicker, dish the ball around a little quicker, try to get the ball in another spot. I think he maybe forced it a bit. I think Pity forced things a little bit at times last night. Those are two guys who have high expectations. They're counted on to do a lot in this team, and when it's not on, sometimes you're going to get this kind of night where they are going to try because they're the guys. They're the stars. And they're going to try to change it. Pity has done that with his career at River Plate. When things weren't going well, he would pull out a moment of magic. He will do that here too. Right now, he's not sharp. So it's a little bit harder to find that magic. Happens. The other things Tafka said before we go to a quick break, Larry being asked to do Remedi's job, Remedi being asked to do Nagbe-type work, that's a function of the 3-4-3 because the roles change. All those roles are different. It's not Nagbe-type work anymore. It's not Remedi-type work anymore. It's a different role entirely. I've seen a really mixed bag of reactions to Eric Remedi's night. I thought he was good. I was happy with Eric Remedi. Others were not. I don't know what to criticize. That's the hard thing is there's not a lot outside of LGP having a really bad night for him. There's not a lot of individual criticism in my mind. It's more of that lack of sharpness and somewhat tactically, yeah, there's some differences. Yeah, they're not completely in sync. I think that's to be expected a little bit. Maybe not to this degree. And that's going to be the question for Frank DeBoer going into next week, and we'll leave the segment here. Does Frank DeBoer have to look at things and say, you know what, this is where I want to go. I want to play 3-4-3. I want to be a team with 60% possession. I want to be Chelsea from 2017 that won the Premier League. And that was a team that played this style of 3-4-3 with two central midfielders, wingers tucking in, that had 60+% of possession in their matches. That was what they did. Maybe that's where he wants to be. Maybe he can't get there yet. Maybe there needs to be an intermediary step. Maybe there's things he learned here that, do I go back to a 3-5-2, which is a little more comfortable for the group? I can still build on the possession side of it and still get to where I want to go. Maybe I just need to take a little bit slower route. Maybe I need to take a little bit of an end route around it. That's going to be the question this week, is what is going to give you the best opportunity to win 2-0 or more in the second leg? Because this match on Thursday is not about building for the season. This is about moving on. There's a result here that has to happen. So you have to balance building for the long haul, which is something that is maybe a little more true to MLS than other leagues, but also getting this result on Thursday. And maybe 3-4-3 is not there yet. Maybe it does need to change. That's what Frank DeBoer will be weighing this week as they work on the video analysis, work in training, see where this team's at. Those are going to be the decisions. Those are going to be the questions going through his head this week. Let's take a break. More overreactions, underreactions, on-par reactions, all the reactions after this.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Got issues with youth or high school sports? Positive Coaching Alliance can help. PCA is a national nonprofit working to transform youth and high school sports so that every child has a positive character-building youth sports experience. PCA provides live and online workshops to train double-goal coaches whose first goal is winning and whose second, more important goal is teaching life lessons through sports. PCA also has workshops for parents and high school student athletes. For more information, please visit positivecoach.org.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinski of Apolinski & Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
I adopted Bento in 2010 from a shelter. This cat makes me make art. He's always motivating me to draw pictures of him. He just is motivating artistically. He's my best friend, but a lot of people know him as Keyboard Cat.
Keyboard Cat, YouTube star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Start yours today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
Welcome back. I believe this is our first Overreaction Friday. I don't think we've had one of these before. First Thursday competitive match in Atlanta United history. Is that what happened? I think it is. We'll have another one next week. Hopefully a more excitable Overreaction Friday after a good result. This was not a good result. 3-1 on the road. 2-1 on the road. Okay. 3-2 on the road. Okay. 3-1, yeah. It's not the greatest of situations, but it's not hopeless either. A 2-0 win or a bigger win, a bigger margin win, gets you through. If Herediano scores a goal next week at Kennesaw, then things get more complicated because then the away goals tiebreaker is gone because you're even, and you have to win outright, so you're going to have to win by 3. If they get multiple goals next week, then it gets really complicated, and then they have the tiebreaker. So it's just you got to score twice.
You said there'd be no math on this show.
You got to score twice. Let's just leave it at that. You have to score twice, and you see what happens. Let's get into the referee a little bit. Cesar Ramos, and I thought Sherbs had a very entertaining tweet that made me laugh on the plane. February 21st, 2019, 9:21 a.m. local time. Cesar Ramos looks at himself in the mirror, and he says, "I will not call any foul suffered by Ezequiel Barco." Maybe so, because I was slightly apoplectic about it last night. I'm maybe driving or at least pushing pretty hard the Barco train. I really love the guy's talent, and I think he's going to come good. I get very frustrated when I see attacking players like a Barco, just defenders can't deal with them, so they just foul them as much as possible, and those players aren't protected. Yeah. There were a few last night that I was pretty surprised were not called, and I think it took Barco out of his game because he had a dive after about 2 or 3 no calls, trying to get something. I think he also carried the ball a little bit too much at that point too. It's like he's trying to show the ref, no, look, I'm really getting fouled. Watch this time, and it wasn't happening. This is something Barco has to get better at dealing with because it does happen to skilled players on their way up. There's just this thing, and Mike, it's probably consistent in all sports, where guys kind of have to earn that reputation a little bit as a star to get those calls, and I don't think Barco's there yet. We saw some kind of soft calls given to Pitti and to Joseph at different points last night, and Barco's getting clobbered and not getting anything. I think he has to just kind of put his head down and play a little simpler in these moments where a team is going to take him out physically. Okay, get rid of the ball a little bit quicker, pass and move.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with all that. And to use another sport comparison. I mean, the NBA immediately jumps out because,
yep.
I mean, we all know the calls that LeBron and Steph Curry and Kevin Durant get are not the same calls that John Collins and Trae Young and De'Aaron Fox and, rookies across the league get. In fact, to take it a step further, I mean, I remember Paul Millsap when he was with the Hawks, who I did believe was a superstar in the league. He was a consistent all-star, and that guy couldn't get fouls at all. And what surprised me about Paul Millsap was he never really had the reputation of being a complainer. So when he would complain, it was probably because he was getting fouled the crap out of. And the one thing that worries me a little bit about Barca, again, Jace, I totally agree with all of that you've said. Did Barca get one yellow card last year for simulation?
I don't think so.
He did not. He did not get a single yellow card for simulation. I have not looked at his yellows from Independiente, but I know last year in MLS, Ezequiel Barca was not a diving player. Okay, so you're right. I mean, he did dive once last night, I think, just trying to get something, and it was because he put himself in a little bit of a puzzle. But I know that a referee like Cesar Ramos is probably not taking things like this into account, but this is going to be a big thing once we get into the MLS season. Ezequiel Barca is not a simulation player. He doesn't dive. If he's going down, he's probably getting fouled. And this was a frustration last year that we thought he wasn't getting enough foul calls. He was one of the more fouled players in the league. The other thing I would say is Atlanta United is going to have a lot of problems in matches this year if a referee like Cesar Ramos is doing the game. He just let so much go both ways. He let so much go to the point where he lost control of the match before halftime, and then he was calling everything. But Atlanta United is going to have a lot of problems if referees give opponents leeway to be that physical with them this year, because it just goes completely counter to the way that they want to play. But I'm very, very troubled by, and I said this last year, I was very troubled last year by the way Ezequiel Barca was being officiated in MLS. And you're not going to see Cesar Ramos again this year, but you're going to see Alan Chapman. You're going to see Alan Kelly. You're going to see Jair Marufo. Marufo in particular is a guy who doesn't. Yeah, I mean, guys that don't like to give a lot of fouls. So, to Jason's point, Barco's either going to have to change the way he plays, which he might not be inclined to do, or referees are going to have to start changing the way they officiate Ezequiel Barca. And that's okay, too.
Yeah, I think it's going to be more of the first, at least in the short term, because I just don't think especially in CONCACAF, and this is something Kevin from Charlotte with a pretty funny overreaction Friday post. They said the ref will be fine. They said the field will be fine. They said the defense would be fine. And then it's a gif of, I'm not angry, I'm just disappointed. The ref, I thought would be fine too. I was disappointed. This is a World Cup referee. And I thought he was just way too inconsistent. That's my number one beef with any referee, John, is I don't care if you are, and I can't think of the guy off the top of my head in MLS who would call a lot of fouls. Or if you are Jair Marufo in the postseason, where you let everything go, but you were consistent. I just want consistency. I don't care which way you go, just consistency. I don't think there was any clear line last night from the referee crew, and that was the frustration with me.
No, and looking at it last night, you're sitting there, and I'm trying to take a sample size and sit there and gauge fouls as they're being called, and it's like, okay, so I see a bar, all right.
No, we might have lost our Costa Rican feed.
I'll tell you what.
And you're sitting there going, okay.
Oh, there he is. He's back.
The standard.
Thought we lost you, John.
No, I didn't
You
move.
were gone for a second.
I'm just moving. Boo!
The referee crew got you.
Yeah, really? But no, it's just what I'm looking at when it comes to officials is early in a match, I want to see how they're going to gauge things. Are you going to call... Are you going to be quick to your whistle? Are you going to sit there and, if somebody just gets pushed over slightly, is that going to be your foul call? And so then for the first 20 or 25 minutes, I'm sitting there and I'm looking for some level of consistency. It's like, okay, so this is how the match is going to be called. I didn't get that last night. You think that you've got a baseline for your sample size, and then things change. And so that to me was a frustrating element of it all, where, you see cross body blocks and forearms and, single wing takedowns, and some of it's called, some of it's not. And so to your point, Jason, give me consistency. We didn't see it last night, and you could tell really that both sides were frustrated. Both sets of fans were frustrated about the lack of perceived consistency. If it's like, okay, this is what I thought it was going to be, but then the rules change. So, yeah, to your point, it's like, give me a solid baseline to play with instead of having me guess for the entire 90 minutes about what's a foul and what's not. And to your Barco point, I think that he did seem to try a little harder. That's because of the frustration. What you want to do is you want to try to assert yourself that much more. And I think that we saw that last night with Ezequiel Barco, in the frustration in either not getting calls or not being able to get offensive chances. He put his head down that much more and wanted to create that much more. So you could tell there was a level of frustration there with Barco last night.
Yeah, and it was the bad reaction because it kind of took him out of the game a little bit, and his impact dipped as the match went on. And it was the right sub to pull him and bring on Nagpi. It did change things up. The field. We'll take a quick break, and we'll come back and we'll wrap up hour number 1 talking about the field. Different questions about it, different comments about it. Maybe a little overblown, maybe not. We'll all discuss that in just a minute. Stay with us.
Today's show is presented by Apollinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service Ad Council and your state forester.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency, or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Every hiring manager knows that a company is only as good as the people it's made from. So where do you find the best people? That may surprise you.
Meet the grads of life. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
This is talent worth knowing about.
Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
Welcome back. Overreaction Friday. SDH, Jason Longshore, Mike Conti, John Nelson with you. Team No Sleep.
Present.
Trying to get through it as best we can. We apologize for any times we make absolutely no sense, or at least less sense than usual. Let's talk about the field.
I was going to say now, wait a minute.
Yeah. The field, it's not the Mercedes-Benz turf. It's turf, but it's not the same level of turf. Walking on it, both days, when the training session happened and then when we got there yesterday and even afterwards, it didn't feel hard to me. It felt like, and there's got to be a technical term here when it comes to artificial surfaces, it felt like there wasn't any friction. Like, I think it's something we see at the bends where you'll see balls check up. If you hit a ball with some backspin, it'll check. A just normal speed pass will run at a normal speed. Last night it felt like it was fast, not hard.
Glassy.
It didn't seem like it was bouncing, but you would think wet in that case, and they did not wet the field. So it was just speedy. And when you play on that and train on that, you get used to it. When you don't, and it's different enough to throw you, I think it frustrates you. And Mike, I mean, we definitely heard complaints about the field and what it would do to this match, and it really seemed to bother Atlanta United.
Well, and we talked earlier about how some of the passes seem to be a little bit too heavy, and with the lack of friction on that pitch, maybe that's a little bit of a part of it. The only thing I would say is this. I mean, look, in CONCACAF, you could have way, way worse than what you had last night with that surface. Way, way worse. This might sound like a really simple thing, but this is how I would describe the difference between what we had last night and what we have at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Because, Jason, you and I walked across the pitch with our radio gear to get up to the broadcast booth. I was able to wheel our luggage across that pitch as if it were a hardwood floor. At Mercedes-Benz Stadium, I have to pick up the case and carry it because it won't roll through that turf. So maybe that helps you visualize a little bit the difference in the texture of the pitch. And that could be a very, very big difference for Atlanta United's players that are accustomed to 17 matches at Mercedes-Benz with the ball reacting that way as opposed to what they had last night.
Final thoughts on the turf, John? About a minute.
No, I just thought that with it being as hardwoody, I mean, and I use glassy just because it didn't seem to have any response. So if you hit something, normally you get that kind of a response. You didn't get the anticipated response off of the turf. And I think that the same issue that Atlanta United had last night, I think that Herediano is going to have at Fifth Third next week.
Yeah, that's a good point. It is a very different type of surface from what they're used to, and not just at home, but in the Costa Rican Primera División. It's a different type of field. It's that hybrid field that they've installed, right? It's got some artificial base to it.
Yeah, in fact, I think the first of its kind installed in the United States.
That'll be interesting. It could be interesting for Atlanta United, too, but they'll get a chance to train on it if they so choose. And they probably will, you would assume. That's it for hour number 1. We're going to grab coffee or Mountain Dew or Red Bull or all of the above and get ready to do one more hour of Overreaction Friday right after this.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Got issues with youth or high school sports? Positive Coaching Alliance can help. PCA is a national nonprofit working to transform youth and high school sports so that every child has a positive character-building youth sports experience. PCA provides live and online workshops to train double-goal coaches whose first goal is winning and whose second, more important goal is teaching life lessons through sports. PCA also has workshops for parents and high school student-athletes. For more information, please visit positivecoach.org.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinsky of Apolinsky & Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
I adopted Bento in 2010 from a shelter. This cat makes me make art. He's always motivating me to draw pictures of him. He just is motivating artistically. He's my best friend, but a lot of people know him as Keyboard Cat.
Keyboard Cat, YouTube star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Start yours today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
You're listening to Soccer Down Here daily on SDH Networks, a division of OSG Sports. Find us at Soccer Down Here on Facebook and Twitter. The time is now the top of the hour. Peep, y'all.
All right, hour number 2, Overreaction Friday. It's been okay. I was a little worried coming in, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, this isn't the same response we had from Houston last year.
Well, it wasn't the same game. I mean, there wasn't really much positive to take out of Houston, honestly. It was bad. It was bad all the way around. There were good things in this one, and the goals you gave up were not the same kinds of breakdowns. So it's not the result you wanted to start, obviously. And I think Matt, he just tweeted at me, and he's dead on. Now you can't rest players in the second leg, and it complicates the DC match. I mean, I don't know how you're going to do it, because if you get through, if you come back and you have to fight back and you win this series and you get through, and you're probably going to be matched up with Monterrey a few days after the DC match, you have to start thinking about that. And the DC match, that lineup changes dramatically if you get through. If you don't get through, okay, then maybe you push through and you play some of the starters against DC, and then you're just back on a normal schedule. If you get through, well, because this is now a complicated series, you're not going to be able to rest players at all. Eric Schwartz said this earlier this morning. Watching the early first half reminded me of the comments around letting the attacking players attack the way they want to without structure. Meant to foster creativity, but felt like they ran out of ideas at times. I wouldn't say they ran out of ideas. I think they just weren't in sync. They just weren't on the same page at all times. I mean, there were a bunch of different times that you saw a ball played thinking Joseph was going to check back to it and show for it, and he showed and then ran, made a run, and then you wanted the ball over the top. There were times that the player would check back and the ball was played over the top. Times the pass just wasn't weighted correctly. So I'm okay with the creativity. I'm okay with the system. One thing that didn't happen enough last night was consistent involvement from the wingbacks. And if you want to get into anything on the attack that I think needs to be worked out, consistently getting the wingbacks involved. And sometimes that's going to take a little more patient possession. And it's going to take slowing the pace down to work the ball into positions, to give Gressel an opportunity to put a good cross in, to give Bello an opportunity to get in behind. I thought he did a few times, but then I thought at the end, after getting stuffed a couple of times, Bello was a little reluctant to penetrate in the final third and look for that killer pass. That brings us to a point from Josh Eisenberg. He had a few points on his hashtag Freakout Friday. One of them is, even though Bello showed flashes, he'd like to see Breck Shea as the left wing back. Yeah. I thought Breck Shea would start. I thought his experience would give him the start here. Bello had a tough matchup. Herediano, I think, is at their best on the right side. And you have two players in Diaz and Fuller to start who are both fast, both like to get forward, created some 2v1s in the attacking side, and both could run with Bello. His speed was not really an advantage. He could run with them, but he couldn't get by them very easily. There was one where Luis Diaz just looked like a very experienced player against a young teenager making his first start at this level. And it really showed. So after Bello's performance last night, Mike, how do you feel about the left wing-back position on Thursday? Does Bello come back? Is it Shea? Do you change it up? What do you think?
I look at it this way. Shea will start either against Herediano or DC United, and Bello will start the other. Yeah. I mean, I think it's that simple now. And I think at a couple different spots, you're probably in the same boat. Where, Tito starts one and maybe Barco starts the other, or Pitti starts one and Tito starts the other. I think you're at that point right now with match compression. And the tweet, I'm going to go back to the tweet you read right at the top of the hour. I mean, that's actually a really scary thought. If you have to empty the tank now to get 2-0 or better against Herediano, then you go to DC on Sunday, and then you're probably going to Mexico the following Wednesday. and then you're coming back to play Cincinnati. Like, that is really, really scary now.
Yep.
Where if you had gone down to Costa Rica last night and you had won 3-1, and you might be able to go with a little bit of a mixed second choice against Herediano, it just buys you a little bit more time. And you brought up the point about Pity Martinez being, not quite 90 minutes fit yet. I'll bring up this question. Do you consider not playing Pity Martinez Thursday night in order to have him closer to 90 minutes ready for your MLS match on Sunday?
No way. No way. I think it's worth having him at whatever he's at because he's that freaking good. He is going to be, in my opinion, the most talented player to set field Major League Soccer.
I agree.
And I'm very reluctant to go with that big of a statement, but he is that good. We saw flashes of it last night. We didn't see it for 90 minutes. We didn't see it for the amount of time he was on the field. It wasn't there completely. But we saw flashes of a player that you don't see in MLS on a regular basis. You're going to need him to beat Herediano. I don't think you can get through Herediano without him right now because you're not completely in sync. It's going to take those moments of Pity Martinez, 30 yards from goal, beating one defender, hitting a shot with the left foot, and scoring out of nowhere. I think you're going to need it.
Let me put it another way then, because I agree. I mean, obviously, we want to see all PT all the time. Let's say, though, you're in the 55th, 60th minute on Thursday, and it's 1-0 Herediano or even 1-1. I just feel like you're going to be at a point in Frank de Boer where you might have to make a decision if things aren't going well Thursday night where you have to pull the plug on this. Then again, if things aren't going well on Thursday night, then you don't have to worry about next Wednesday in Monterey or potentially Allianz, I guess. So it's a double-edged sword. I'm wondering now if they're going to look at the fixtures coming up and really start to be very, very careful about fitness and usage and rotations and all of that, especially if things aren't going the way you want in the first half on Thursday.
Yeah, I think you will. I think it's going to depend on the scoreline and the minute mark on Thursday as to when or if that might happen. If Herediano comes out and gets a couple of early goals, then yeah, I think you'll see that hook come pretty fast for players and say, you know what, let's just save them for Sunday and have them, even where maybe we weren't even thinking about them being in the 18, maybe they're a second sub on Sunday. Maybe it becomes that type of conversation. But if it's close, if it's within shouting distance, I think you're throwing everything out there to try to get past Herediano. Thoughts, John?
No, I'm right there with you. I think that this is, with all of these different matches that you have in this short period of time, you were looking at every possible combination and permutation. I mean, that dry erase board with the magnets with players' names on it, it is going to be one gigantic flow chart in trying to figure out, okay, if this, then what? And it's score lines, and I think that you're going to continue to throw everything you have to get that advantage early at Kennesaw. I mean, for me, I think the question is Bello or Shea on the left. And then if Darlington is, we saw what he was able to do in his short period of time when he came out there last night. But then if Nagbe is in, how do you tweak and how do you contort? Does Tito once again come in? And later and all that. So there are a couple of questions and a couple of roster ideas for Thursday, but I think those for me are the questions.
I think Breck Shea is absolutely going to start a match next week. I just don't know which one.
Right.
Yeah. It's a different situation now, and it depends on how you think you're going to be able to attack Herediano. If you want Bello's speed, he gets to start. If you want Shea's maybe craftiness, he gets to start. That's going to be the decision. What can you exploit? Villalba would not surprise me to see Tito Villalba from the start. And I think it would probably be for Barco. I think that would be a pretty easy straight swap if you went that way. Wouldn't surprise me a bit. Tito he came on and had an impact last night. I thought he came in and played with a chip on his shoulder. I liked it. He was angry when he came away from warming up and grabbed his kit, and he was ticked off because he wasn't happy about the result. Sometimes you need that guy who will just grab the team and carry them and say, look, this is not acceptable. And that's kind of the way I felt like he was playing last night. I liked it. Nagbe's a tougher spot because in this 3-4-3, who does he replace and what do you do? Those are going to be the bigger picture questions that we talked about at the start, is do you potentially look at adjusting the system a bit? And this is something that we see with top teams around the world. Manchester City doesn't play the same way week after week after week. That's a hallmark of Pep Guardiola. He will make tweaks. He will change it. You have a philosophy. You have an idea of the way you want to play the game, but it might be a 3-4-3 here. It might be a 3-5-2 here. It might be one up top here. It might be, it looks like a six-man midfield here. Those things happen all in the same framework. Now, we don't generally see that in the United States, and we don't see it in MLS. I think we're starting to see more tactical variation in this league. And I think that's something that Frank de Boer is going to bring to the table. It might take a little bit of time to get used to, and it might take a little bit of time for the players to get used to it, because it is different than where they were last year. Last year, and even 2017. 2017, it was 4-2-3-1, ride or die. At the end of the season, after you clinch the playoff spot, a little bit of experimentation, but you didn't really find anything that worked. You started working on three in the back immediately after the season in 2017. 2018, you saw a lot of three in the back. You saw some 4-2-3-1. You saw them go back to the three in the back, and that's how they finished. You'd see a lot of consistency. I don't know if that's going to be the case under de Boer. We'll have to wait and see. I think it's more about the idea of how to play as opposed to the shape you're going to play in. I want to see where Nagbe fits if you want to get him in to start in this group right now, and that's maybe a little bit bigger question. Josh also asked if the second goal was on or off. I think it was a good goal. From the replay I saw, and this was on my phone at sometime around 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, flying over Cuba possibly. I think it was on from what I could tell, but I haven't seen a better replay yet. There wasn't much of a reaction, so I would say that more than likely it's a good goal. You didn't really see a lot of complaint.
Yeah, and that's usually my guideline, is that if you don't see a whole lot of complaint about it, then just go with what they're looking at on the pitch.
By the way, I don't want to go too deep down this wormhole, but I will say as an announcer, it was very nice knowing that when the ball was in the net, the goal was going to stand no matter what last night. VAR does a lot of really good things, and I'm all for getting the call on the pitch right 100% of the time, but it was nice having that decisiveness. Okay, ball's in, 1-0, no VAR, let's go. Because I feel like there were a few moments last night where in MLS there'd be some checks and maybe a check in the monitor or two. So glad that did not happen.
Definitely. We've touched on Will's point a little bit here about, he cites sample size for sure, but he says win the midfield battle, win the game. Two central midfielders with a dropping in winger isn't going to dominate possession. And obviously it's a sample size issue. We'll have to see how this goes. I don't think the idea is for one winger to drop in. I think, honestly, the idea is for both wingers to drop in and the wing backs to get forward more. And you just didn't see that in complete – the cohesion just wasn't there. You get, like, bits and pieces of it. You'd see it occasionally. I want to go back and look at how the possessions were coming together in that stretch in the first half where I thought Atlanta United looked its best. The other thing about Will's point about dominating possession and only having two central midfielders, I think you have to have more patience than Atlanta United had. And Mike, we talked about this late in the game, which was kind of a weird spot because late in the game you're chasing another goal. You think you're going to be more frantic. But it seemed like Atlanta actually went, I think, to what Frank de Boer wants and got a little more patient, wanted to get players into positions, using possession to work the ball forward to get players in the positions you want to create chances. And we saw them try to get Gressel going down the right. We saw looking for the switch over to the left at that point, getting Bello going. They weren't able to make it happen, but you saw the game slow down in possession. Maybe some of that's down to Herediano dropping deeper, but to dominate possession in this shape, there has to be patience to it. It's not a frantic game. That's another difference from how it looked under Tata Martino. Atlanta United looked frantic under Tata a lot of times. It worked to their advantage.
But Herediano also did not allow Atlanta United to play patiently, and I think that's a really, really important fact. I mean, it almost felt at times like we saw hints of that Red Bulls press a little, especially when the ball found its way to Barco and Pitti, where immediately it's three red shirts around the ball. So
it's a little different, and I think in that sense, what Herediano did really well is it's not so much a press. The press would have been up high, and they only did that like once or twice when Atlanta looked a little shaky in possession in the back. They closed things down very quickly, and they usually did it with two guys. It wasn't just one guy hopping out on the ball. It was two. That's risky. It worked last night because Atlanta didn't react to it quick enough and play the ball quick. And that's, again, where Barco has to recognize, okay, they're running two at me. That means somebody's open. I've got to play fast. You got to know when to play fast and when to be patient. These are things that are really hard in your first competitive match. Those are quick decisions that over time become just natural. You make them quickly without thinking. You don't have to say, well, what did Coach DeBoer tell me to do here? Okay, what do I need to do? Okay. You just do it because that's how
it becomes instinctual.
Yeah, and you're not there yet. You're not there yet with the system, and you're not there yet just with the quickness of the thought because nobody's there playing your smartest in game one. You can't be because you can't replicate these things. All that factors in, but he's correct in that you dominate the midfield battle, you dominate possession, you're going to dominate games more often than not. It's not as easy with two central midfielders. You're seeing more teams around the world do it, and they compensate in different ways. Remember the big conversation, John, about Greg Berhalter and Nick Lima cutting inside to play next to Michael Bradley from the right back position. That's a very different way of creating, possession superiority, numerical superiority. That's not what Atlanta's going to do, but that's one way to do it. You see others do it where the wingers in the 3-4-3 come inside and it kind of turns into a box with two central midfielders and two central attacking midfielders in front of them who were wingers. There's different ways to do it, but you're going to have to get some help to Lorenowitz and Remedi or the players in those roles going forward to dominate that possession.
Yeah, and to your point, once again, it just early on, to me, the pacing of the match seemed frenetic on purpose from Herediano. And I think that when you're in your first match and you're trying to think things and it's not instinctual and you're trying to process at the same time that you're trying to accomplish something. And you saw players trying to think through moves instead of just trying to do things. And I think that obviously with time, things will get to that point to where in a very fast situation, you have to think faster. And it took a while for Atlanta United to get to that point where they were processing and thinking and just having it flow as opposed to just the notion of, okay, it's first match. You're thinking, okay, A, B, C, D, E, instead of just having it come through organically and naturally. And so to me, that was one of the things that struck me in the first. We mentioned what Herediano was doing off of jump. That was what struck me, was that it was trying to adjust to a pace in your first match, in your new system, and trying to think about what you're doing. And it took time to process things, and we figured that out. And we saw in the second half that once things kind of slowed down and they were processing things a little more naturally as we got into the second half, especially when Nagbe was in, even though you were chasing a result.
And those things lead to a team looking disjointed and separate like they did last night far too often. Let's take a break.
Yep.
We're almost getting caught up on the Overreaction Friday. There's quite a few. We'll try to get through all of them in the next 40 minutes. Hang out with us. We'll be right back.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yep, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service Ad Council and your state forester.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Every hiring manager knows that a company is only as good as the people it's made from. So where do you find the best people? That may surprise you.
Meet the grads of life, young adults of unique determination and experience, an ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
This is talent worth knowing about.
Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
Welcome back. Overreaction Friday. Soccer down here. Jason, Mike, John, we're all still awake. It's going okay. I'm on the small Red Bull now. I had the 12-ounce Red Bull earlier. I'm on the small one now.
Okay.
I'm trying not to give myself a heart attack, John. I'm trying here.
I would think that you would have a built-in tolerance for the Red Bull there, sir.
I mean, it's still what it is. There's only so much you can do before you get a little shaky, and I would like to sleep at some point. So we'll see if that happens. Let's get into more of the Overreaction Friday hashtag. Will Palmer says, I don't think winning a home match in a sold-out fifth third with 99% Atlanta United supporters 2-0 is a big ask. I would agree.
Yeah.
I would completely agree. It's not a crazy thought. I mean, this is a team that in Herediano who still is struggling to create goals from the run of play. They created one last night from the run of play. The first one was a defensive mistake. Third one was a set piece. Second one was a good goal, a good build-up. So, okay, holding them to a clean sheet, very possible. This is a team that struggled on the road as of late. This is a big road trip. This is now a situation where they've been backs against the wall, desperate. Now they're coming in and kind of have to think about protecting a lead. Can they switch that mentality? Can they go super defensive? I don't know if it's in their mentality. It's going to be interesting. I thought they were going to do it last night a few times, and they never really did. They kept going forward and leaving some space. So I don't know if they can sit and defend for 90 minutes on Thursday.
I was just going to say, they didn't have the look of a team that's capable of parking a bus. But I think the other thing that's very important, this will be their third match in 8 days when they play at Kennesaw next week. They've got a league game this weekend, and they like Atlanta United cannot afford to rest on Thursday because they want to advance in CONCACAF. Herediano cannot afford to rest anyone right now in a league match because they're ninth on their table out of 12.
Yeah, and I think they are still playing for jobs a little bit. I mean, Medford is a Costa Rican legend, but he bounces around a lot as a manager, which is very typical in Central America. He's not the only one. But he's not on steady ground. He didn't win the title in December. That was Yafet Soto, who is now the technical director. So Medford doesn't have a lot of that just gravitas in the club right now because they're struggling, and they don't like that very much. Josh Eisenberg with a good point, too. I'm not hearing the sky is falling type of talk like we did after Houston last year. This one hurts more, though, because of the meaning of the game. Yeah, I don't know if it hurts more because it's not done yet. A little more disappointing. I think, we talked about it coming in. If you had lost by 1 goal, that's fine. It's not what you're going for here. You wanted a result, but that's fine. Losing by 2 and the way you gave up a couple, it hurts a little bit because of that. But the sky is definitely not falling because there was really nothing positive to take out of the Houston game. There were quite a few different things to take out of this one.
Well, yeah, right. I mean, definitely. Go ahead, Mike.
That Houston match, oh, boy. I mean, I'm just trying to run through that in my head. That was even I think he had a missed penalty in that match, too. Like, literally every single thing that could have gone wrong went wrong that day. Atlanta United played a lot better last night than the 3-1 scoreline indicates.
I would agree. Go ahead, John.
And then bringing in a point from Felipe Cardenas. He says, chaos, pressure, and intensity are staples of an Hernan Medford team that's clicking. Herediano were on last night, and Atlanta United, instead of managing the pressure, played right into it, i.e. LGP dribbling into pressure in the 5th minute. Getting these players to dial it back on occasion will be one of De Boer's biggest challenges, old habits.
It'll be a challenge for Medford as well, because when you are a manager who wants a team to be chaotic and to cause chaos, you don't want chaos in protecting a 2-goal lead. You want the opposite of chaos. So we'll see if Medford can adjust how Herediano plays. It took 90 minutes of competitive action to get the old school Trains with a Z back. Completely back.
Whoa.
Complete,
CCL narrative?
Just the usual Train stuff. I'm just going to read the tweet. What happened
Standard
to our
optimism?
Yeah, totally. What happened to our midfield? Why does Barco have to carry the ball for like 30 yards? There's no connection. Good points. Completely with you. Larry's now a turnover machine. Jeff didn't have his best game last night. I'm with that. He was slow to make decisions at times. Is that down to match fitness, match sharpness? Is that down to the system being a little bit different and the pieces being in different spots? Or a little of all of the above? I'm kind of leaning to the latter. But, yeah, it needs to be better. You can't lose possession in some of the spots where Laronowitz was a little slow to make a decision. But then Trains goes full Trains, and it's time to pack it in and focus on MLS. Shield back on the table.
Welcome back, Trains.
Well, look, I think there could be a point Thursday night. Like I said earlier,
absolutely.
If you're down 1-0, where that decision might have to be made, but you're absolutely not there yet, not by a long shot.
No, you're not there until about the 75th or 80th minute, and it's probably going to be one guy that you say, you know what, that's enough, if you get to that point. But hopefully you don't. Tyler Epp said, I think the 4-4-1-1 killed us. They just packed the midfield and back line. We weren't able to find space for passing, so we tried and failed tricky passes and long balls. I disagree. They didn't really pack anything in. They didn't pack the midfield. They played 2 central midfielders. Marine was out wide. Luis Diaz was out wide. Randall Azofeifa and Esteban Granados, 34 and 33 years old, dominated the game. Flat out. They dominated the game. That was why Herediano won this game. I thought Azofeifa was the man of the match. I thought Granados was excellent. They knew when to defend. They knew when to step forward. They played like seasoned veterans, and they didn't tire. I kept waiting for it. They did not tire. Full credit to those two. And it wasn't really packing the midfield, Tyler. I don't think that was the case. They didn't pack the back line either, because you saw Ariano get forward down the left. He's a converted midfielder. He wants to go forward. You saw Kaysher Fuller on the right side. He became a midfielder when subs were made because he's comfortable getting forward. So it was frantic from Herediano. I wouldn't say they packed it. I do agree that Atlanta at times tried too many low-risk passes. Not so much long ball. There were some long passes attempted. Long ball, to me, is just clearing it and getting rid of it. There's no intent. There were some long passes that, again, are low percentage. There were some riskier passes played because I think the team was getting a little frustrated. It does go back a little bit to what Train said about that disconnection. You weren't getting the build-up play and the possession-oriented play that I think this team wants to do. And it got too frantic. It was a little bit of, okay, Herediano is playing at this speed. We have to play at this speed. No, they didn't. They needed to actually do the opposite. They needed to do what they did at the end a little bit. Slow it down, keep possession, swing it left to right, create the opportunity, then go. Know when to just, pump the gas a little bit. I mean, if you were in Costa Rican traffic, you saw this firsthand because, oh my God, I will never complain about Atlanta traffic again. Costa Rican traffic is a whole nother level. And those drivers,
Costa Rican drivers?
Well, no, they knew when to do this. They needed to sit down with Atlanta United and explain it because they would coast. Oh, there's a gap. Boom, go.
Punch it.
It's a very small gap. It's not a safe gap, but it's a gap. Go. Oh, there's a lane there, kind of, sort of, maybe. Go. Put your foot on the floor. That's what they would do. But
make your own lane.
The thing that Atlanta United has to find is playing at different speeds. That's really tough to do early in a season, and that's what good teams develop over time. Sometimes the game dictates slow it down, frustrate the opposition, draw them out, hit them in the space. Sometimes it's, okay, this team is going to try to slow the game down against us. We're going to speed it up and make them uncomfortable. You have to be able to do both, and Atlanta really struggled with that last night. I think Felipe's point's really good about Hernan Medford teams making things frantic. They made Atlanta United more frantic than I think they were comfortable with last night, Mike, and that's why we saw some of the play that we did from Atlanta that we didn't expect.
And, for people who weren't with us at the very beginning today, who are just jumping into it now, that was a very early red flag to me, was that in the very first minute of the match, Herediano was very content to take the match right to Atlanta United and force Atlanta United to make decisions, and the pace was just too frenetic. It was too uncomfortable. That, to me, was an early sign that we were going to have some trouble. That they created a scoring chance even in the first minute. So I don't know if they're going to be able to play in the same way Thursday night. And again, I don't think they're going to park the bus. I don't think they're set up that way. But now you go from a lightning fast artificial surface to probably a much slower natural artificial hybrid. It'll probably be about 50 degrees colder in Kennesaw, and that would still mean the temperature's like in the 40s. On Thursday night. By the way, did you guys notice when we were walking out of there last night, like all the stewards, all the Herediano club people, everyone as we were leaving, they were all wearing like parkas and knit caps and winter coats because the temperature had dropped to 67 degrees by the end of the match. I thought that was hilarious.
I mean, I put on my light jacket, but...
Yeah, I mean, it was light jacket weather. It wasn't, Juneau, Alaska weather or anything like that.
No, in Costa Rica it was, though.
Yeah, I guess. But no, I just think Atlanta United's going to have, just as Herediano had some pretty big advantages playing on their home pitch Thursday night. This is why you play two legs. Note to Don Garber and the MLS Competition Committee. This is why you play two legs. Because there's an advantage to playing at home, and Atlanta United, fortunately for them, has the advantage of playing that very important second leg at home.
Alex kind of hints at something we just touched on. He asked if we think Herediano will use a similar game plan as Atlanta did in the second leg against Red Bulls, and we don't, or I don't. I think we're all in agreement on that.
No.
I just don't think they're built that way. If they do, I don't think it will be successful.
Jason, off the top of your head, how did they play against Saprissa in December?
I'd have to go back and study it. I didn't focus too deep on those because the team had changed so much.
Yeah.
So, and it's a different manager, too. So, I don't know if it's even relevant.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing. If you risk going out of character, then you risk the wheels falling off of everything that you've created. So I think that, at this point, I think Medford, to a certain degree, is going to dance with the style that brought him here. So I think it's going to be it won't necessarily be 78 RPM on the turntable like it was early last night. It might be 45 to start, and then try to figure out things from there. But I think that I
think they have one speed. I think they have one speed.
You think it's 78 all the way?
I think you might see some different characteristics of it. Like you might see Minor Escoy start up top instead of Jose Guillermo Ortiz, because then you can just play direct. You can just play simple and just play over the top and let him run. Okay. It's still pretty much the same speed. You just might change it tactically a little bit to be a little bit safer. Granados and Azofeifa, if they're the two central midfielders again, these are smart guys. They're going to pick their spots and when to go and when to sit, but I don't think they're going to sit completely and be defensive and bunker. I don't think you have outside backs who are comfortable doing that. I mean, Omar Arellano's been a midfielder most of his career, and Keisher Fuller's pretty much a midfielder playing as an outside back. You don't want them sitting deep. They're not going to be that effective for you.
Yeah.
So I just don't think they have it. I think if they do, they're going to struggle.
And that's the point. And that's the thing, is that if you go out of character, you're risking everything that you've created, and you're putting yourself in an unfamiliar territory. So I just wonder how, and Jason, you mentioned it. It's just picking your spots. It's how do you temper yourself on the turntable to make sure that the song comes out the same when everybody hears it.
It's going to be interesting. It's going to be a big test for Hernan Medford, and we'll see maybe if we get any hints of it on Sunday in their next league match. We'll see if the lineup changes a little bit. Some guys get a day off, some rest. We might get a peek at what the lineup could be for Thursday in Kennesaw. Let's take a break, come back, more Overreaction Friday after this.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Got issues with youth or high school sports? Positive Coaching Alliance can help. PCA is a national nonprofit working to transform youth and high school sports so that every child has a positive character-building youth sports experience. PCA provides live and online workshops to train double-goal coaches whose first goal is winning and whose second, more important goal is teaching life lessons through sports. PCA also has workshops for parents and high school student athletes. For more information, please visit positivecoach.org.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinsky of Apolinsky & Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
I adopted Bento in 2010 from a shelter. This cat makes me make art. He's always motivating me to draw pictures of him. He just is motivating artistically. He's my best friend, but a lot of people know him as Keyboard Cat.
Keyboard Cat, YouTube star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Start yours today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
Overreaction Friday. Not a happy overreaction Friday. 3-1 loss last night for Atlanta United. CONCACAF Champions League round of 16, first leg. Herediano has a lead to protect coming to Kennesaw State next Thursday, which will be a very, very interesting match. I think there's a lot of great second legs. Honestly, the only one that I'm not interested in the round of 16 is Marathon and Santos. I even want to see Independiente and Toronto because it could be It's going to be 25 degrees. I don't think the Panamanian team has cold weather gear. It's going to be like when Harborview from Jamaica played DC United in a Champions League match, and they had to go to the Dick's Sporting Goods and buy everything they could find to wear under their kits to try not to freeze. They did not play well.
Yes.
Even a 4-goal lead in that situation could be very, very interesting, especially if Toronto gets one early. But there's a lot of good matches. I mean, Saprissa with a lead going to Tigres, Monterrey going home, scoreless against Alianza. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun second legs, and Atlanta closes it out again. Or no, they're the next to last. Kansas City and Toluca are the late game on Thursday. I mean, Toluca's in a big hole, but they get Kansas City at altitude. So we will see next week. We got a good taste of CONCACAF-iness this week. I think we're going to get some really ridiculous CONCACAF bonkers, wacky stuff next week. There's no telling what could happen. Kelly Francis chimes in, and she is absolutely correct, and I can attest to this. If the loss of the game hurt us, the fans, I can assure you it hurts the players more. No doubt they will come into that game on Thursday with intense fire and determination. I mean, I mentioned it with Tito. Like, I thought he was going to rip his jersey, putting it over his head. He was so ticked off in front of us on the bench, getting ready to go in. Frustration, and Kelly went on to say, Pitty's frustration was visible. Joseph's frustration was visible. They wear their hearts on their sleeves. We know how they're feeling in a match. Kelly's right in that there's a lot for Frank DeBoer to work on, and that was kind of where we ended the very beginning of the show. What does he do in the next week? Because he's stepping into a tricky situation, Mike. I mean, he's coming in, taking over for a championship team with some new faces. He's making some tweaks, and I think some tweaks that are fine. I'm cool with what he wants to do. I really do like it. I think it's pushing the envelope here. I love it. But it's a process, and you're kind of on that teeter-totter right now because you're thinking about your long-term process. But you also need to think about overturning a 2-goal deficit in 90 minutes to move on in the CONCACAF Champions League, a tournament that's very, very, very important.
I hope this analogy makes sense. When the stock market's doing pretty well, and then one day there's a correction and it crashes like 800 points, and a lot of people freak out. What's the best advice that financial advisors and stockbrokers give when something like that happens? They always tell you unanimously, don't do anything.
Buy.
No, they say don't do it. Well, yeah, maybe buy, but don't sell. Don't sell.
Yeah, don't sell.
Don't do anything. The best thing you can do is not do anything. And maybe I'm a little too stuck on this point, but Atlanta United was in 3-4-3 the entire preseason in the matches they played, at least. We don't know what they were doing in training behind closed doors. But from what the media was able to see from the two matches that Jason and I did, they've been in the 3-4-3. I think it would be a mistake to even make a subtle change to a 3-5-2 at this point with the sample size being as small as it is. I think if this is something that Frank DeBoer is committed to and he's trying to get the players committed to it, the worst thing you can do is now throw that philosophy out and make a change for this return leg. And I do understand that there's probably a school of thought that a 3-5-2 may give you a better chance to move on because of the familiarity that the players have with it. I think it's way too soon for Frank DeBoer to change that. There are, to Kelly's point, absolutely things he can work on. Absolutely. And I think some of that starts with the lineup and the 18. That's probably, I would think, more of the direction that he will go in rather than change tactics or shape. And Jason, to your point too, I mean, I think we get hung up on shape a little bit too much.
Yeah.
But I would hate to see him just after one match say, you know what, we're going to just undo everything we did in the preseason and go back to the way it was. I think it's too soon for that.
It wouldn't blow my mind if you saw them look more 3-5-2 than 3-4-3, but that's subtle. I think you can't change that philosophy right now. I mean, and I think the philosophy is possession, create chances out of it, good defensive shape in transition. I think it's the simple things like that. And last night we didn't see quite enough of the possession, especially like not patient at different points of the match. Those things don't need to change. Those are hallmarks. You can change the shape a little bit to get players in maybe a little more comfortable position. Although, that's something that I saw a lot of last night, and I've seen some this morning, is that players were played out of position. Who? Like, I don't think anybody was. There's really nothing to that. Again, position, shape, it's all kind of overrated, and the style is different enough that because of what Eric Remedi did last year doesn't mean that's what he's supposed to do this year. Miles Robinson playing in the center doesn't mean that Michael Parkhurst could because he did it in last year's system. They're different styles, so things do change a little bit. But it's something I'm with Mike on this. I don't think you want to see drastic changes. Maybe tweaks for 90 minutes, maybe tweaks to get a result here. That's the balancing act, and that's the tough thing here because you get knocked out of this, questions are going to be raised, and they should be. I mean, that's what happens to big clubs. That's completely fine. Doesn't mean he's feeling the heat. Doesn't mean he's on the hot seat, anything like that. Anybody who thinks that's ludicrous, in my opinion. But you're going to ask questions because this is a tournament that's important. So, okay, did you maybe bite off more than you could chew early on? Should you have eased in? Who knows? And we're going to have to wait and see how it plays out. But I think the idea of the way you want to play, which is bigger than shape, formation, individual positions, it's the way you want to play. That has to be consistent. You can get there in different ways, but the way you want to play and the hallmarks of what you do have to be consistent, and I don't think you want to change that just for this match. I don't think you're going to win if you change that for this match. Nathan Pugh, John, I want to get your thoughts. Nathan said, I was not impressed with Gazan. Seemed very indecisive on whether to come for things or not. Got caught out multiple times. Nathan was on the other side of a lot of folks, and he said that PT looked lively and really into it. He's pumped about PT. Thoughts?
Okay. I think that Brad came up big in some situations. When I look at what happened on the goals, once again, it was a chesting and a pass back that was not at the right level of touch. And so, of course, Brad is going to be kind of caught out there. And then
zero fault on Brad on that.
Right. And then I think that the way that things are structured in the system, we knew that there were going to be those opportunities for the visitors or for the opposition in transition to have to take advantage of a numbers game. And I think that that's what you're going to see. So as exciting as they're going to be offensively going forward, there are going to be those moments in the season, especially early on as you're getting adjusted to roles and figuring out the system, where I think that Brad is going to have to be back there, as literally fending for himself at times. And we saw what happened. I mean, it was a shoulder shake and it was put past him for goal number 2. So I'm completely and totally high on Brad Gazan, fine with his performance last night because he came up big in a bunch of other situations too. So zero issues with Brad and what he was going through. But for me, there were times where PT looked frustrated, and you could tell that because he was a focus of Hernan Medford and their defensive set, Mike, that it was going to be a long night for PT and a long night for Joseph.
Yeah. Well, and, I'll go back to the tweet we got at the very beginning about how Joseph wasn't getting service. Absolutely, that's true. Because Herediano was making it impossible for service to come into him. Look, I have seen a lot of I think extreme reaction on both sides to PT's game last night. Way too small of a sample size, and he's probably not 90 minutes fit yet. So I'm not going to overreact to anything. I do think the flashes were there. I mean, he magged the guy in the first half. I forget who it was, but I remember Jason saying, well, that's his first of the season. I mean, we saw those flashes. It'll come. It's going to come. It's like Rocky trying to learn to fight left-handed. Well, it'll come.
There you go.
You know, sometimes you got to chop the right arm off to make him learn it, but it's okay. It'll come.
All right, final one before we go to our final break. John Dolezar, impressed with our bounce back on Team No Sleep. I'm shocked and maybe appalled. I might be appalled later when I'm half awake. He agreed with me. I said it a couple times. I know I said it on Bunker Mentality before we went on live for pre-match coverage, Mike, about Eric Remedi being such an important part. John thought Remedi and Lorenowitz were both poor last night and got bossed in the midfield because of it. I would maybe disagree that they were poor. I'm going to give a lot more credit to Azofeifa and Granados as being just better. I think they were just better. I don't think that was Remedi being poor. This is the part I want to ask you about. John Dolezar also says, Lorenowitz looked really old last night, and he should have been subbed off for Nagbe instead of Barco. Nagbe really settled the game down when he came in, which is crazy considering his lack of match fitness from being away from the team for much of the preseason. Jeff looking old. What do you think about that?
Disagree.
I do too.
And I'll tell you what, this got tweeted by the club, so I think we can talk about it. We had very rare access to be at their training on Wednesday night. Jeff looked like he was 18 years old on Wednesday night. Did he not?
He did.
I mean, he almost pulled off like some Paul Gascoigne magical, volley the ball over his head and then half volley it into the net past, I think, Leandro, who for some reason was practicing at the keeper. I thought he looked pretty darn fresh on Wednesday. I think it's just a testament, again, to how Herediano really made things difficult in the midfield for both Remedi and Lorenowitz. But no, I don't think he looked old. And honestly, I don't think Jeff played as bad a game as what some people have suggested. He did have a few turnovers. I thought he had a reckless shot late in the match when Atlanta United could have done a little bit better in build-up, and he just kind of drove it and was a little bit impatient. Yeah. That bothered me a little bit. But for the most part, I can't find anything too terribly glaring with Jeff. But I also think the thing we need to remember is I don't think Jeff's going to be counted on to start 33 matches this year as he was last year. And it would have been 34 if not for a decision to kind of pull back on him late in the year. I think now you have more depth where you're going to have a rotation. And it might be as simple as just a 3-man to take 2 spots for rotation with Nagbe, Lorenowitz, and Remedi. And that's one of the vital reasons why Nagbe coming back is so important, because now you have a little bit more flexibility to do that. But if you would have seen Jeff Lorenowitz in person Wednesday night in that training, you would have thought that Jeff Lorenowitz had stopped at the Fountain of Youth on his way to the Estadio, because he looked very, very loose and very, very ready to play to me.
Yeah, I wouldn't say he looked old. I think he looked a little slow in decision-making. And I'm going to put that down to sharpness more than age, because I think it's more of just speed of thought, speed of play, and that comes with getting in rhythm, getting in sync. It's something to watch with any player at that age. It's something you have to keep an eye on, because it does happen. I don't know if it's the case just yet, and partially because of what we saw on Wednesday. I think he's got a lot to give. I think he's just not quite there in sync with everybody yet, and that's something we've talked about all day. So I'm putting it more down to that than looking old. I think he looked a little slow in decision-making, which is not necessarily old. Let's take our final break, come back.
Yes.
We want to talk a little bit about the atmosphere and kind of our experiences last night and share that with you guys. But we have a couple more points we want to hit before we wrap up, too. We'll be right back after this.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yep, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service Ad Council and your state forester.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Every hiring manager knows that a company is only as good as the people it's made from. So where do you find the best people? That may surprise you.
Meet the grads of life. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
This is talent worth knowing about.
Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
Final segment, Soccer Down here. February 22nd. It's Friday, I think. I don't know. I think I'm in Atlanta again. This place looks familiar. It's about 30 minutes of sleep. It was a long trip. It was.
See, you can't sleep on
difficult.
a plane. Mike can sleep on a plane, and I can sleep on a plane, but you can't.
I probably slept my best on a plane last night. I might have got 30 minutes. Maybe. It's questionable. Yeah. Anyway, you guys don't want to hear about that. You want to hear about the match. You want to hear about our thoughts. A lot of people had a similar question, and I'm going to kind of lump it all together. Franco Escobar, injured, did not play last night, not in the 18. We don't know when he's coming back. Did he travel? I think he traveled, but I don't remember seeing him.
I don't remember seeing him.
So maybe he didn't travel.
I don't remember seeing him.
We know he was in California with the group, and he was not training on the field with the group. There could be some work he is doing for fitness and things like that, but he's not ready to go just yet. When he is, what happens? And it's a good question because I thought he was the best player for Atlanta United in the postseason run. Does he become a center back? Does he replace Michael Parkhurst? Do they rotate? Does he replace Julian Gressel? Do they rotate? What happens when Escobar is back? Mike, what do you think?
I think he's a right wing back, but I don't know what that means for Gressel.
Yeah.
I don't see Franco as a center back. I don't see him. I think that actually it's ironic. I think the most secure of the three center backs right now in having his position locked down, and if I would have told you this 2 weeks ago, you would have probably thought I was crazy, is Miles Robinson. So, I mean, he's not going to take Miles' spot. Yeah, I mean, maybe you can give Parkey a day off. LGP had a lousy first half last night, but he's your rock. You aren't taking him out for Escobar. Escobar's a right wing back to me. But then I think that gives you some flexibility to try some other things with Julian because he's got the versatility where he can help you out in the midfield. He could probably even help you out up top if you wanted. But I would cringe at the idea where you're going to go into matches with Julian and Tito on the bench, both. Because those are two really good players with some goal scoring ability and some punch that I think you have to have out there frequently. So that is really, really tricky. Really tricky. And honestly, I think that's going to give us some very good insight in how Frank de Boer manages this lineup going forward, because Franco is going to be back soon. I mean, he was on a 6-week timetable when he got hurt. We're at the end of the 6 weeks pretty much right now. So it's going to be pretty soon. He's going to have to get fit and then match fit, and that will take a few weeks. But we'll probably find out, I would think, by the time we get in the middle of March.
Yeah, I think he can play a center back. I think he could be the right center back in the 3, which means you're going to have some questions if you want to get him there. Does Parkhurst slide in the middle? And I've said in the way that I think Frank DeBoer wants them to play, I would worry about Parkhurst's speed as that central of the center backs. I don't think he has the range that Miles Robinson brings to the table. So I could see Franco playing some there. I could see some rotation where he's a right wing back sometimes, he's a right center back sometimes, for sure. Gressel, and I'm not saying that he is at the caliber of the comparison I'm about to make, but I think he could fill a similar type of role that Philipp Lahm filled for Pep Guardiola at Bayern Munich, where Lahm had been primarily an outside back, but in games where Pep wanted something different in the middle, he would bring Lahm in and play as a 6 or an 8 or halfway between a 6 and an 8, depending on the shape, depending on the tactics for that match. Gressel's a guy you can do that with. If you see a weakness in the opposition where you'd like to get Gressel inside, he could play as one of the central midfielders. If you want a different look from your front 3, he could play as one of the outside forwards who drops inside. So he's that guy that could be a change of pace, could be a change of look in different positions. I think you're going to see more guys like that. And I think that's where the game is kind of headed more. And we don't see that much in MLS, and we really haven't seen that much in the United States in the way the game's been taught. But I think you're going to see more multi-functionality, if that's the best way to put it, where guys play different positions depending on the individual, game tactics that day. And I think that's okay. I think that's completely fine. And if Gressel is one of those guys, if Escobar is one of those guys, if Nagbe's one of those guys, that's completely cool. John, Shiva asked, why do you think we keep playing possession soccer with a team that kept pressing us, kind of like the Red Bulls, instead of long balls? It seemed like Pitti and Barco had nowhere to go when they got the ball. I totally agree with the second part. There were times where it felt like they were completely bracketed up with Pitti and Barco, but
yes,
this wasn't a press, because I can only really think of one or two times where the Herediano players stepped up high, and that's the way the Red Bulls will play. They will press everywhere. Herediano really didn't do much of that. What they did was they closed things down quickly, and I think that's why it looked like Pitti and Barco didn't have time. I thought they were running 2 people at the ball a lot of times.
Yeah, and that was kind of how I was looking at it. Yeah. To me, it's tight man marking, closing on the ball, trying to deny possession and any kind of a second pass or any kind of movement. And so for me, the definition is more closing in on the ball, man marking, and forcing a decision and not giving them room to breathe. It was, it's like, and I'll continue Mike's Rocky analogies here. When in the first Rocky movie, when Rocky got inside on Apollo and he finally got in and got those rib shots, and Mickey tells Rocky, don't let him breathe. That's what we saw. So for me, it wasn't pressing. It was, getting that shot to the ribs and making sure that Apollo couldn't breathe for the rest of the match. That's the way I looked at the defense of Herediano last night.
A couple more to wrap up. Tyler Epps with a good one as a quick answer. Do you think it would have helped if Atlanta United didn't treat this as a typical MLS road game? Would have been nice to have a couple extra days in Costa Rica to train locally. I don't think it would have made a difference, because
totally disagree.
Yeah, the temperature, the weather didn't change anything. Yeah, I absolutely disagree, because you weren't going to play. You weren't going to train on that field.
By the way,
how to let you train on the stadium field? Like they're not going to do that. They have to the day before the game.
Yeah.
But if you come down like, we're going to be staying over here. We'd like to practice at the field. No. What?
By the way,
no.
How'd it work out for Toronto going down to Independiente like 4 days before their match?
It's true. Didn't really work too well.
There's a goal per day.
Right.
Well, there's that. Tom Schreck, and we'll finish off the Twitter here. There's so many tweets. You guys are awesome. Thank you. But we want to wrap up because we're tired, and sleep probably needs to happen for at least Mike and I. Tom Schreck with
sleep that you just
the final tweet. Well, you got a plane to catch. You can sleep on the plane. Tom Schreck said this. I'm happy that we got out of there in one piece. I can't recall a sport outside of pro wrestling with 2 stretcher exits in one night. Tom is correct. There were 2 times with the old school stretcher, 4 people carrying the stretcher with the Red Cross logo on it. That was good stuff.
Yeah.
I can't remember who it was who tweeted that I was watching a soccer game and a World War I documentary broke out. Yeah, that sounds like a Payson tweet. That's pretty good stuff. I mean that with the utmost of respect, Payson, to say that was a very Payson tweet. Let's finish with this. So, John, you kick us off. Just your experience last night, because you were in a different spot than we were. This was not a typical, press box area with broadcast positions, right next to it or in it or what have you. We were completely separate. So, I don't even know where you were in the stadium.
I was in the GA with the supporters. I was with the 17s last night.
Nice. And how was it?
And it was absolutely crazy. And you go in, and obviously they take you in the one gate that you're allowed to go in, and you get settled. And I think that security was startled at the amount of 17s that had showed, because they had to slide the gate over and give the gap space for 17 security and the Herediano supporters that were in the the south end zone. And every single aspect of Atlanta United that hit the pitch got applauded and cheered the entire time. I mean, the training staff got applauded when they were walking out. The coaches got applauded. All the players got applauded as they were walking in front of the 17s. To see Arthur Blank, being treated as the rock star that he is, to see Darren being treated as the rock star that he is, and to see this moment of history for this franchise, and to see people of all ages. I mean, there was a married couple that brought their 2 kids, and one of the kids, God bless him, I want to say it was probably 6. He slept through pretty much the entire match. He was out, but his parents were there in that end zone watching this entire thing and holding their youngest child, who had made it longer than the oldest child. To see all of the responses and to see the 17s applaud the Herediano fans as they were exiting, and having the kit exchanges over the security fencing. There were fans that were making the substitution sign, the international substitution sign, and wanted to swap scarves and kits. And at halftime, across security lines, there were folks who were swapping out kits, and they were making presentations. And for every presentation that was made for an Herediano fan that wanted an Atlanta United kit, and vice versa, the Atlanta United fans were applauding each and every swap when the kits were being placed on. I mean, it was a very special environment just to see how Atlanta United was representing itself on the international stage. And just for me, it was cool from a cultural perspective, how all of the Atlanta United fans were there making live shots and being their incredibly cheerful selves, hanging out as a group. And Mike and Jason, you'd mentioned, Skate Knopfsinger being there, making sure that the supporters were going where they were supposed to go. But just from a coolness factor, it was 11 billion and a half on the coolness scale. And just to have this piece of history filed away, I can't say anything more about just the entire vibe that was going on, and having people texting the boss when apparently we were all being seen on the international feed. Hey, we just saw you on the game feed, those kinds of things. So it's a bunch of little special moments that added to a very special evening across the board down in the end zone for the general admission for the 17s.
What about you, Mike? Now that we're back in the U.S., getting ready for next week, what was your experience like, your first international match?
Unforgettable. And just enormously special in every possible facet. And I think John has hit on a point that was very, very important. I think there were a lot of things floating out there on social media when this draw came out, Atlanta United going to Herediano. Hey, you better be careful going down there. Those Costa Rican fans can be crazy, and it might be dangerous, and be careful where you stay and watch your back at all times. And it was the most pleasant, respectful environment that I could have ever imagined for a CONCACAF Champions League match between a club that's enormously significant and big in Costa Rica and a club that's enormously significant and big in the United States. But that stadium, the house of Don Cordero, as I guess it's been called, there's no luxury there. They have running water and they have concessions and all that, but they don't have seats. They don't have luxury boxes. They don't have a scoreboard. Didn't matter because every crack and crevice of that stadium was just oozing with history and kind of a purity of the game that they've been playing there since the early 1950s, before soccer had been kind of corrupted by sponsorships and television and all the money that has kind of changed the way that we consume soccer. This almost felt like a throwback experience, like going back to the old Boston Garden and doing a game there. But it was so heartwarming to me, all the help that we got from our radio colleagues in Costa Rica to get our broadcast on the air. And that was a challenge, but they came through. The Herediano staff was amazing in brokering all of that. And I think what meant the most to me was, I had sent out some tweets Wednesday night when we were there for the press conference and training about just how you could tell what a special atmosphere this was and what a special place the house of Don Cordero was. And it meant a lot to me to see Herediano fans on Twitter really appreciating that remark from someone associated with Atlanta United. And in fact, I think one of them said, here's a guy who does games in a Class A 73,000 seat brand new stadium who understands that the heart of the game still lives in the house of Don Cordero. And I think the heart of the game absolutely lives there. And all I can hope is that we get a chance to do something similar to that again, because I'll never forget it. It was very, very, very special.
Yeah, it's something that, I've studied the game, I've watched the game, I've read about the game, I've talked to people about the game, pretty much my whole life. But I had never been to a game in Costa Rica. I'd never been to a game in Central America. And it was everything that I hoped it would be, I hoped that when we heard that tickets weren't moving real quick because Herediano was struggling and they did a 2-for-1 deal the day of, I was like, man, I hope it's a good crowd. I hope we get to experience some of that. And just the electricity at the kickoff and Jimmy Marine turning to the fans right underneath us and asking them to get loud and get into it. And you saw the Herediano players doing that a lot. It was such a cool historical stadium, and I've seen people say different things about the lack of amenities or this or that, and it's a common thing that gets talked about when you talk about soccer in Central America. Yeah, it's not fancy, that's for sure. The experience we have week in, week out at Mercedes-Benz Stadium is completely different, and I love it, and it's amazing, and it is very Atlanta United. It is what Atlanta United is. Doesn't mean it's better or worse. It is what Atlanta United is. That stadium and that vibe is what Herediano is. And it's all special because it is all the passion, the no frills, the just rawness of this game. And there's a different, to me, there's a little bit of a different feel from the soccer I grew up with in the 80s, 90s, into the 2000s, playing and really starting to follow it. There's a difference between that and what we see in MLS now, which is great. It's not consistent. Some of the MLS environments we see are still like those days. This is very different. This is... It's just, you have to do it. You have to experience it. You have to follow Atlanta United next time. You have to go down to see a game. You have to experience it because it is different. And as much as I knew that, and talking to people had that idea, and even like the experiences with the Latin game I've had in Atlanta in local leagues and local teams and just having conversations with folks. I didn't know until we were there and until we were part of it, and it's amazing. It was a beautiful place. I don't care about any of the things it didn't have. It had soul. It had heart. It's a great fan base, and that's a great club and a very proud club. And they're not going to come up here next Thursday and think that things are done. They're not going to come up here next Thursday and be arrogant. And when you experience that and you see it firsthand, you know why that's the case. And you know why it's going to be a difficult match on Thursday. And it's going to be a match that Atlanta United will have to prove themselves again. And this is something that we've seen with this club many times in the last year, where you think that, okay, this is the new team. Yeah, they don't know what this is like. And, okay, maybe they get punched in the mouth, they're slapped in the face, or however you want to put it. But what's been so good about Atlanta United is that they bounce back and they learn quickly. Well, you got a week now to learn and to be ready for this on Thursday, because now you know what this team is all about. You knew it from watching video. You knew it from what you know about these players. You knew it from the scouting. Now you can feel it a little bit. Now you truly know why they are, why they're scrappy, why they're physical, why they're going to be a tough out. And you know what you have to do to get it done. So I can't wait for leg 2 of this series. I can't wait for leg 2 of CONCACAF Champions League across the board. If you ever get a chance to go down to Herediano specifically, but if you ever get a chance to experience the game in a different culture, do it. Do it, because that's what this game's all about. It's not a one-language game. It's not one culture game. It's all these different flavors that come together. So can't wait for next Thursday. Thanks to everybody for sending so many tweets. We couldn't even get to all of them because y'all are crazy. Thanks to everybody who listened and interacted with us last night. Thanks to everybody who was there and wanted to take pictures with us before the game. Like, why? But you did. So all of that, thank you. Thank you for supporting all of what we do. We really appreciate it. But business next week. Atlanta United's got a mountain to climb, and we'll talk about it on Monday, what they need to do to turn this around. Mike, thank you. John, thank you. Y'all get some rest. John, safe travels.
Do our best. And you and I are in Chattanooga tomorrow.
Yeah, that's the idea. I will try to wake up. I think. I'm going to try to get some sleep between now and that one. Oh, boy.
You fly out by.
Yeah, something like that. All right. Have a good weekend, y'all. Thanks, everybody. Mucha plata, y'all.
Mucha plata, y'all. Mike?
Mucha plata, y'all.